if you are capable of doing with science, you are welcome. If you are capable of doing, doing engineering, you are welcome. So there is nothing like men are dominating science in science and technology. That is how we are made to believe, but that is not the case. Many studies have proved. So anyway, let me give you some examples. Today is actually National Scientific Temper Day. On this day, where Narendra Dabholkar is actually killed on this day for working in Maharashtra to remove the superstitions among the people. So this day is actually the rationalists from this country are remembering him today in order to honor him. So they have celebrating, they've been observing this day as the National Scientific Temper Day. Now, what is the scientific temper? How it is important for women? As a scientist, as well as a woman, even a common woman or an educated woman or a scientist woman or an engineering woman. So how important is the scientific temper? A woman as a scientist, woman as an engineer, woman as a common woman. So in all these three areas, how scientific temper plays an important role, what is scientific temper and how it related to science. Now scientific temper is nothing but rationalism, scientific temper is nothing but scientific rationalism, scientific temper is nothing but enlightenment. So you just scientific temper is an attitude towards seriousness towards doing science, and at the same time to respect the way you do science. That is that you employ logic, you employ common sense, you employ method, you employ the systematic methods. So using the systematic methods to understand the nature, physical world and natural world. When you employ the science systematic methodology, a systematic method to understand or to draw conclusions or to go near to the truth of the nature, the same method, why that not be applied to the society in understanding the social systems, in understanding the cultural systems, in understanding the systems that we build in order to manage ourselves. So the application of same to the society is what is called scientific temper. Scientific temper is quite natural to the scientist, and that can be used as well in order to understand the societal logicalities. That means the logicalities that are inbuilt in the cultural and social systems that we built in order to operate ourselves. So this is what I am talking about by referring to scientific temper. Anyway, is one thing we need to look at. First of all, how even scientists, popular scientists, fail to inculcate scientific temper into them and very comfortably separate science from scientific temper, or science from scientific rationalism, or science from rationalism. So this separating these two is very unfortunate because they both goes together. If there is no scientific temper or there is no scientific rationalism, you cannot do science. Let me give you an example. C.V. Raman, we all know is a Nobel Prize winner. We are very proud of him as a scientist, but he has denied admission to a student, Kamala Soni, in 1937. He was director of the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So he is denied admission to a student, PhD student called Kamala Soni. And Kamala Soni later pointed out how it is unfortunate or unfair for a scientist of that stature has denied her the admission. Now, if you try to understand what made C.V. Raman, despite being a scientist, to deny admission to Kamala Soni. Now, if you try to understand woman as an equal human being to that of men, he would not have denied the admission to her. If he did not see Kamala Soni as an equal human compared to any other, compared to him, of course, or anybody, any male students who are getting admission into the IISc at the point in time. So why he could not see Kamala Soni without another man who are getting admission into the IISc Bangalore at that point of time? What made him to see her differently? If you are seeing her differently, that means you failed to cultivate your mind as a rationalist, as a scientist. Who is a scientist? Scientist is not just the man or woman who does science. Doing science itself is make you rational. Doing science itself is making adopting rationalism as a prime ideology. But then here, C.V. Raman separated himself into a man who respects the culture, which is discriminatory to the woman, and he is a man who is great in doing science. So both are contradictory to each other. So by denying the admission to Kamala Soni, C.V. Raman was seeing Kamala Soni as a different race altogether. Not even human race, different race. So biological variations between male and female turned out to be a different race. Had he considered her as woman, he would not have denied the admission to Kamala Soni. She has pointed out, she has criticized him later in Indian Women's Science Congress. So this explains that despite being a scientist, we are failing to eliminate the impact of the cultural constructs in our mind, which should have been the primary responsibility of a scientist, where you first scrutinize the cultural constructs, illogicalities inbuilt in the cultural constructs first. Or if you are not doing simultaneously, at least if you are becoming a scientist, you are automatically acquiring the ability of scrutinizing, understanding. The illogicality in everything need not have to be science. If you are a scientist, your logicality need not have to be limited to understand the secrets of the nature, solving the problems of the nature, but also human problems. Application of science and reason to solve the human problems is also important. That's what the popularization of science. That Albert Einstein did it, Stephen Hawking did it. Stephen Hawking, in fact, has written books on brief history of time, written books on how he feel responsible to popularize the scientific temper or scientific rationalism apart from doing science. So here we found that he could not see Kamala Soni as a woman, who is equal to that of any other human or a male candidate approaching for PhD, to do PhD with him or in the institute. That is, which is very important to understand. So that is not limited, but however, that is not limited to male scientists alone. Even female scientists were not able to come out of the cultural constructions. It is not enough to just complain on male scientists alone or male engineers alone, but also I found women engineers, women scientists too, could not come out of the cultural constructs. They also got stuck up in that as a layer of discrimination. They started discriminating the female of the lower sections of the society after becoming the top scientists in this country. Anyway, so let me give you an example of why some scientists, women scientists or engineers, could not come out of the cultural construct. I am indirectly referring to religious restrictions put on women or put on society. are presented as the followable systems and customs. So women also failed, despite being a discriminatory category. Women unfortunately also failed to come out of the cultural construct. I'll give you an example. Daughters of Leelavati is a book published by IS Indian Science Academy Bangalore and National Indian Science Academy Delhi. They both brought together a book called Leelavati Daughters. Leelavati is the daughter of the mathematician Bhaskara II of 12th century. So Leelavati was trained as a mathematician by her father, and he has written a work and named it after her. So that's how she became sort of a scientist or mathematician in history, whom we are taking pride. And then women are identifying, today's modern day women, scientists are identifying with her. Now, in this book is consisted of biographies and autobiographies of women scientists and engineers, both colonial times as well as post-colonial times. So in that, I found, and also Meera Nanda, Meera Kosambi. Meera Kosambi is daughter of D.D. Kosambi. D.D. Kosambi is a famous historian of this country, a Marxist historian of country who has worked on the ancient Indian history from the Marxist perspective and people's history perspective. So the daughter of him is Meera Kosambi, worked on Anandi Joshi. Anandi Joshi is a first medical student from Maharashtra, and she went to USA. She became a global citizen, like Subramaniam, who has also got Nobel Prize. So point I'm trying to make here, like male scientists in this country, though a bit late, in the colonial times, female scientists are also becoming global citizens. Yet, despite being global citizen, despite doing well in science, despite trying to strike the equality with that of the male, so to that extent they are not equal. But however, they're still being discriminated by the family members and all that. Meera Kosambi calls her as a fragmented feminist. Reason that Anandi Joshi failed to eliminate the cultural constructs in her. She was fighting for the women's equality after becoming scientist, pointing out the discrimination that she was facing at home, but at the same time she was not able to come out the constructions, cultural constructions. So that's why Meera Kosambi calls her as a fragmented feminist. So that means on one side she takes tradition, another side she also adapts reason, logic and modernity. So this is a sort of a problematic situation that we are having today. What bothers me more is that after becoming a scientist, be it a male or female, inability of the scientist to inculcate the mind to promote scientific temper or scientific rationalism, or rationalism to promote the society's equality, democratic institutions, provide equality to all, across genders, across castes, across communities, is not even 2%, 5% in this country. That is very unfortunate. That compared to that of the Western societies, the role of a scientist and engineer as the cultivators of reason and logic turning out to be something nothing, absolutely nothing. So why that is happening? Jawaharlal Nehru, though not as radical as Mustafa Kemal Pasha in imposing the nationalism, rationalism on this country. Mustafa Kemal Pasha, you might know, the Turkey went through dramatic changes. He went on to even attack the religious symbols on the human body. He went on to the extent of eliminating any religious symbol on the human body. You cannot carry the religious symbols of on human body. That even culture, religion, language, anything that is attached to the religion is separated from the Turkey citizens by Mustafa Kemal Pasha. He went to that extent, being a ruler. Even the fez cap was asked to be removed. Robe, a Muslim, the preacher wears. You do it only when you are inside the masjid. When you come out of the masjid, you remove all those things. To that extent, Mustafa Kemal Pasha went and rationalized his country. Again, today, the country is going back to the pre-Mustafa Kemal Pasha times. But we cannot help it. It depends upon who the rulers are, unless and until the civil society takes a stand, stays together, takes a stand, which positive ideologies it believes, which positive ideologies believe that it has the ability of offering the democratic societies in this, in the world or any country for that matter, which positive ideologies have the ability to offer equal rights to each and every across the communities and castes. So unless and until the civil society takes a single stand, which is impossible, unfortunately, then the rulers will play with the minds of the people. So Turkey is, what is happening now, Turkey is that going back to the pre-Mustafa Kemal Pasha times. So Nehru tried his level best with Maghanand Shah, P.C. Ray, and later Pushpamitra Bhargava. Pushpamitra Bhargava, today we are celebrating, as I told you in the beginning, that the National Scientific Temper Day. He is very important man, Pushpamitra Bhargava, as a scientist who has started the Molecular Biology Institute in Hyderabad. And this man, this popular scientist, he is a perfect scientist, whom I call as a complete scientist, a scientist who promoted the scientific rationalism, and at the same time, he did a fantastic science. So very rare combination of these two, which is quite natural, but rarity is very unfortunate. Being a scientist, you are a scientist as well as a person who respects scientific rationalism. That you can see in Pushpamitra Bhargava. I just mentioning one name that you can see in Narendra Dabholkar, who has been killed. So like that, there might be many. There might be many. There are plenty of scientists who have been running associations to promote scientific temper. You have Tamil Nadu Science Forum, for example. So every state have these forums to promote scientific temper among the people. But unfortunately, they are being criminalized. They are being seen as anti-cultural, anti-social. Unfortunately, what they're doing is supposed to be natural. What they're doing is supposed to be something 100% good for the society. But they are being termed as anti-cultural, anti-social, and anti to the even criminal and national. That's why Dabholkar was killed. Anyway, so Jawaharlal Nehru, as a prime minister, has made organized attempts in his speeches, in his writings, in his encouragement to the scientists, has made them believe that it is your responsibility to promote scientific temper in this country. And that is the prime responsibility of yours. Though for that, you need not have to dismiss the God, or you need not have to dismiss the science. Like as the practical existential reality, whatever it is, you tell the people to realize whatever they can see. The existing reality can be understood as it is, and if you cannot comprehend things beyond your comprehension, you need not have to worry. So that's what the Nehru's understanding, because that's why he was called as an agnostic, not as an atheist or an atheist. So compared to the Periyar, so Periyar and so Periyar dismisses the invisible or non-existent, but Nehru do not go to that extent. He says, like, if there is something you cannot comprehend, let it be alone. But when you look at the reality, you tell the people to understand the reality as it is, and you tell them to solve the problems on a practical bent of mind, instead of trying to understand, trying to construct culture or trying to believe in cultural systems that do not offer much of what you say, much of a peace in the mind and peace to the society. Instead, they're offering you pain, suffering, agony, inequality, undemocratic attitude. So all these things need to be so. Among all philosophies Nehru tried to promote, scientific temper is also one of them. You have secularism, you have etatism, that is also called as where socialism. So so all these, there are 7 to 5 philosophies of Jawaharlal Nehru, where Bhikkhu Parekh worked on and understood his philosophies as national philosophies. Similarly, Mustafa Kemal Pasha philosophy is also called as Kemalism. Whether we call it as a Nehruianism or not, we can call it as Nehruianism. But in the philosophies, there are constant philosophy, constant philosophy of Jawaharlal Nehru are called as Nehruianism, you can call. So in that, scientific temper, fortunately one of them, one of the philosophies, but then those compared to the other philosophies, scientific temper could not take off as a national philosophy. Rest of the philosophies did well. Secularism, to a larger extent, did well in this country. Till recent times, secularism was doing very well. So is the socialism also, to a larger extent, is also doing well. But scientific temper seems to have not taken off. Not taken off because he has handed over the responsibility, apart from his speaking, writing, he handed over the responsibility to the scientists. But scientists were unfortunately not doing their job. Very few, except very few. And though they grouped themselves as organizations and so forth. But what happened was something that need to be appreciative of Indian scientific community. For some time, is that till 2015, is that they were able to keep the tradition or pseudoscience or pseudoscience or religion away from the science till 2014. That means they were not saying that, look, I am a scientist, therefore I am a rationalist. They were not saying it. At least in the professional arena, as a scientific community, they were keeping religion away and trying to maintain that distinct professional distinction between science and religion. But eventually they surrendered to that. And at personal level, there were two selves. That is rational self and religious self. Unfortunately, as I told you, some very conscious scientists who are the members of the rationalist organizations in this country, apart from being a serious scientist, as like I gave you one name, that Puswamitra Bhargava. So Puswamitra Bhargava, we need to tell a point that he has made efforts to bring scientific temper clause into the Constitution of India, where the 51AH, 51AH is a article in the Directive Principles. It says in the Constitution of India that it is the government responsibility. Directive Principles is that what government Constitution obligates the government to do those things. So it is to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform among the citizens. So which means the Article 51AH obligates the government of India to promote scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. If you look at these words, scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform, all those are interconnected. Now say, let me go back to C.V. Raman. Now C.V. Raman, as an Indian scientist and an Indian citizen, you should take pride on him. But then the basic question is to be asked, if he denied the admission to Kamala Soni, so what does it mean? He failed to reform himself by inculcating the reason and logic. If you try to see woman as a separate category, that of a man, you have not applied the scientific temper or rationalism or logic. So a human capable of failing to reform herself or himself despite acquiring the ability of reforming is an ultimate insult to the very idea of education. Once you have acquired the ability of self-reforming, it not only has to be initiated at the personal level, it has to be extended to immediate constituency called family, and then further it has to be extended to the constituency called community, and further it has to be extended to the constituency called nation, or later to the world. So we cannot say Stephen Hawking is today a person who is just limited to England alone. He is a person who has addressed the entire constituency called world, the world people. So his writings on popularization of science, Stephen Hawking's writings on popularization of science, does not limit himself to England alone. He became a global citizen. Global is a scientist who was impacting the mind of each and everybody, whoever is capable of understanding what he is saying about the importance of popularization of science or importance of inculcating the mind, cultivating the mind to promote reason and logic. So therefore, humanism and reason would go together. Humanism is what? Humanism of the Enlightenment philosophy. Humanism goes back to the Herodotus or the classical times, where history began to be seen in connection with the non-existing forces. For the first time, Herodotus said that the humans are rational beings. So therefore, we have to understand what they do, why they do, how they do rationally. You can be able to understand why they did, how they did, what they did. So if the humans are real, their actions will be real and their actions are understandable. Reasons for the actions are understandable. So you have to go back to the classical times. Then again it came back after the domination of the religion, which J.D. Bernal calls it as the age of faith, from the 4th century AD to 12th century AD, what is called age of faith, where reason, faith is dominating over the reason. So after the 12th century, reason is coming back. Towards 12th century AD, reason is coming back, what we call Renaissance. So after that, you see Enlightenment. So all that. So humanism, importance of human, respecting the human as human, respecting the ability of the human mind to think and act. What religion does, religion eliminates the individual ability of thinking. It deprives the human as an individual entity of thinking, saying that you don't think about yourself, I will think for you, or else there will be God who is thinking about you. So therefore you don't worry. Whatever you do is a direction coming from the God, or whatever you do, I am informing to him. So therefore, what you do, you need not have to worry. This is a simple logic of creationism. So which means that your ability of thinking is made to be believed that you are not doing that. Certainly you are doing it. Every action that we do, the way you are listening to me, you have decided to listen. That decision came from your mind. You decided to join in the short-term course, that decision came from your mind. So therefore, you cannot say that you did not think. You cannot say God told you to join the short-term course. So that is absurd. Anyway, so point is that humanism is nothing but respecting the natural right, what is called natural rationalism, that is inbuilt in the human, to respect the human as a thinker. Most of the religions, governments, even corporations today, wants you to be a follower, receiver of information, not to the questioner, debater, and discussant. The same logic what religion wants you to follow is extended to governments as well as corporations. So therefore, humanism becomes, because we are humans, respecting the human is nothing but humanism, understanding the human natural rights, and by depriving the natural rights of human thinking as well as acting. Thinking as well as acting. If you deny these two, then you are not human. So we use the word inhuman. What is inhuman? Inhuman is you are not acting as human. Where the acting of a human comes from by long term or an immediate action. Both the immediate action and long term actions are determined by your mind process. Nobody can say that I did not think and act. You might be forced to act emotionally, but emotion is also a part of the human process. I did not think anything, so I just acted. So that is all to say. It is further to be examined to how emotionally you are thinking. Even if you are trying to use the emotion as a camouflage or as a cover up to to deny your actions of whatever criminality or whatever good, whatever you good, whatever bad. So humanity is very important. That played an important role in the Renaissance, where Renaissance is respecting the human as a human, trying to give importance to the thought process. Then rationalism, enlightenment. Enlightenment is very important. So enlightenment is actually Immanuel Kant. What he says about the enlightenment is that Kant slogan is there that sapere aude, SAPEREAUDE. Sapere aude is actually dare to know, courage to use your own reason, dare to be wise. This is a sapere aude is dare to know, courage to use your own reason, or dare to be wise. If you are dare to be wise, you have a courage to use your own reason. What does it mean? You are employing your mind, you are putting your mind to examine the things that are given to you in the name of culture or social systems, whatever, to analyze them, to understand them, to see what amount of illogicality went into them. If they are not illogical, for example, nobody would face any discrimination. If there is a woman talking about discrimination today, if there is an untouchable or a Dalit talking about discrimination today, if there is a Sudra talking about the discrimination today, if there is a child talking about a discrimination today, so why should they talk about discrimination if the cultural and social systems are democratic enough, not irrational enough? They are irrational, they are illogical, they are undemocratic, they are unequal. So inequality, undemocratic systems and traditions are not natural. They are by the human logic constructed to be discriminatory, constructed to be undemocratic, made to be unequal to some. So therefore, to understand them, you need to apply the reason and logic that you use as a scientist in your laboratory, as a person who trying to understand the natural reality and the physical reality. When the natural reality and physical reality are understood through the application of the scientific method. Scientific method is is the first that came into existence in the 16th century by Francis Bacon. So Francis Bacon has brought the idea called scientific method, where the scientific method is a systematic understanding of the nature to understand the truth of the nature. So if the scientific method is used to understand the natural reality, physical reality, why not the same to be used to understand the social realities, cultural realities? That's the point here. So humanism will be very important. You have to respect the woman as woman, as human. You have to respect the child as a human. You have to respect the physically challenged person as a human. You have to respect the deprived person as a human. You have to respect the poor person as a human. So all these things will come into existence when you allow the mind to cultivate the scientific temper, scientific rationalism, or rationalism per se. So dare to question of Immanuel Kante's Supra means that your mind is not submissive. Your mind is not submissive. You have acquired the ability of questioning the things that are appearing to be irrational. As I told you earlier, that the religion, governments, corporations would want you to be a follower, not the thinker, not as a thinker, not as a questioner. But that is again, if you are agreeing to such a system of just being a follower, what is happening? You are being submissive to a system that is visibly discriminatory, visibly undemocratic, visibly it deprives you to think about or air your opinions about what you think about many things that you come across. So enlightenment has given the opportunity as a rational philosophy, which is also inbuilt, humanism is also inbuilt to that, to try to understand human societies and their cultural systems, social systems scientifically. Scientifically try to understand them, eliminate the possible illogicalities inbuilt into socio-cultural systems. If that has happened, then women today would not be complaining about discrimination that they are facing. And the rest of the lower sections of the society would not be complaining that they're facing the discrimination today. So I think, unfortunately, what has happened is that modernity was coming into this country around the 19th century, that is 1829, the first time where scientific or rationalism, modernity is something that is application of reason and logic to understand the socio-cultural systems, the logic of socio-cultural systems, the followability of socio-cultural systems, the scientific constructions or illogical constructions. If there is, by applying the humanism, if you believe that this culture is okay to be followed, we'll all allow. But when a culture or a social system is anti-human, humanism will become an important philosophy to criticize such a culture and systems. There is no doubt in that. So therefore, what is happening in 1829 was allowing the modern way of understanding, that is applying the reason and logic, try to understand the cultural and social systems, to understand the inbuilt illogicalities in them so that they can be reformed. So they can be reformed. Now, if that is the case, not in 2003 in North India, for example, in 1829 itself, the first attack or first examination, scrutiny of sati was undertaken. But if in 2003, 2004, if there are people to validate sati, to argue for sati, to justify sati, are existing in 2003, how do you understand that mode of reform or a model of reform? So here it is not the culture. Even culture, even you agree to a culture, you cannot push a woman into the fire. The very act of pushing the woman into the fire, for whatever the reasons, you stop being a human. But if that kind of a tradition is justified, how do you see what kind of reforms we went through? 1829 to 2003 is a big enough time to change the attitude of people towards an entity called woman, a human called woman. But then, if there are people, even one single person is existing to justify sati in 2003, that has happened in North India in 2003, that's why I'm referring to, then we are a failed civilization. Such a person should have been attacked by every human from all corners of the nation, saying that how can you think like that? In Uttarakhand, 3 days ago, woman was killed for witchcraft. So that is also a serious problem. Not just referring to one, but these are all, something that is dismissed and dumped in 2018-29 is coming back as an essentialized culture. Is something need to be quite a worried situation. We need to worry about such kind of a situation. Therefore, the discriminatory systems or science and technology, when it comes to the woman, science and technology, scientist, women as scientists, men as scientists, and the nation as a nation that follows a philosophy. As I told you, Jawaharlal Nehru's philosophies, rationalism is one of the important philosophies for nation. We call as national philosophy. A national philosophy is a philosophy that is used to promote the nation. But national scientific temper is turned out to be a philosophy of few who are just at personal level, at an association level, at an organization level, because they strongly believe in, they are promoting it. Instead of, according to the 51 AH article, it should have been the government which should have been promoting the scientific temper to promote a democratically equal society. Democratically equal society where every woman, male, child, and physical and third gender and physically challenged persons' rights are respected. Not thinking logically, rationally is one of the main reasons why we still fail to be democratic society, fail to be equal society, fail to be a society that respects the natural rights. So it becomes the government responsibility to promote scientific temper. That is obligated by the Constitution, not me or anybody else is telling. It is the government responsibility to promote scientific temper. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, you can ask.
So thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking presentation extemporaneously. So now the session is open for discussion. There are a lot of things Dr. Srinivas Rao was sharing about, with a lot of for recalling from his the events from its historical perspective, what happened in the Indian Institute of Science and how things are happening. So now it is over to the participants for a brief interaction with him. Please, yeah.
Hello, sir. May I ask?
Yeah, sure, please.
Myself, Ritu Bala from Delhi University.
Okay.
Sir, first of all, I can congratulate you. Actually, I feel overwhelmed after this presentation.
Okay.
I'm really very happy, sir.
Thank you.
I want to add one or two things.
Yeah.
You talk about scientific temper.
Mm.
Jyotiba Phule talks about what I say?
Demythicization.
Demythicization
Yeah, demythicization.
in his book Slavery.
Slavery, yes, yes.
And Durkheim also, Emil Durkheim also talks about social facts. Actually, in Suicide, Durkheim's writing in Suicide, he collect the data as a social data as a scientific method. So he talks about three type of scientific data which we collect to study the society. These two things I want to add. Sir, I share my kids' question, two questions.
Yeah.
My daughter asked to me, Mama, how pickle achar, how pickle knows I am menstruated?
Yeah.
And my son asked to me, Mama, in small boy's body, on small boy's body, how elephants kids body fit on a human body?
Okay.
He basically he talks about Ganesha.
Okay.
So he